What's going on, guys? Welcome to Hit Talks, a baseball performance podcast. In this episode, I bring on a very special guest, Isaac Hess, creator of MadeBaseball.com. Coach Hess is incredibly knowledgeable when it comes to the game, a great mind to learn from myself, from my perspective, but also if you are a young athlete looking to take your game to the next level. This dude has an incredible story of adversity. I think everyone can benefit from hearing. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Coach Isaac Hess.
I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and basketball was actually my first love. I wanted to play basketball when I was younger. I always loved shooting hoops outside. And when I was 7, I woke up one night with like excruciating pain in my leg to the point where I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. And my mom and dad took me to the doctor the next day, and they told the orthopedic doctor that we went to, told me that I had something called leg calf Perthes disease, which happens in mostly young boys. They say statistically it's 1 in 20,000 kids get it, normally from age like 4 to 7, 4 to 8 maybe, and most of the time it's in boys, but it does happen in girls sometimes. So what happens is the bone doesn't develop properly. The femoral head comes out of the socket like enough to where the blood flow gets interrupted, and the femoral head no longer gets the nutrients it needs from the blood flow. Over time, it perpetuates and starts to deteriorate the bone and cause it to die, and then what happens then is that the bone starts trying to heal itself by creating calcium deposits over that femoral head. So then, just as a perpetual process until the time I was 19, my bone just kept doing that, and then it was eventually just like a football instead of like it being a nice ball and socket, it was a football sitting in there with very limited range of motion. I couldn't internally rotate my leg at all. I couldn't even think about sitting Indian style. I was still able to run. I still played football in high school. I still was able to even wrestle for a year, but I experienced a lot of pain, and I just never realized what I was doing to my hip at the time. And then eventually, by the time I was 19, and after I had played my freshman year of college and done well, I went up to Washington State, and they told me that I wasn't going to be able to play baseball anymore because my hip was super jacked up. And like I was super ignorant about taking care of my body, listening to my body. My mindset was just be a bulldog, take some ibuprofen, it'll be fine tomorrow.
Yeah.
And by the time I was 19, I was taking up to 12 ibuprofen a day. So I didn't get on any painkillers
Jesus.
or anything. I wasn't like trying to do that, but like for the sake of being able to get out there and feel like my leg could move properly, I was just taking up to 12 a day.
Wow.
Towards the time right before I saw the doctor to see if I was a candidate for the surgery, and then or like what I needed to do. Like if getting a hip replacement was going to be something I could do and then come back and play, or if I was gonna have to retire or be done, right when I got a full ride scholarship to a Division I school, which is what I was working to do ever since I was a freshman in high school. That was kind of my goal. So I play at South Mountain Community College my freshman year, and then I end up going to Washington State after that because I did well. I got a scholarship. I got a full ride scholarship. They gave me tuition, books, and fees. So then I drove up there, and the first day I had a physical, and they told me that I wasn't going to be cleared to play there and that I should stop playing baseball altogether. So I went from on top of the world to rock bottom, baseball wise. So I figured it wasn't over. I didn't want it. I didn't just say, okay, it's over. I got a second opinion. I started looking for ways that I would be able to get around this, and I knew that my hip was messed up. I knew that I was in a ton of pain, but I just never knew it would stop me from playing. Um, so by the time it was winter break of sophomore year, I went and got a second opinion. The doctor said that he would be willing to do the hip replacement, and that He didn't recommend that I played, but he didn't say it was impossible. So mind you, the only other player in pro sports history to play with a total hip replacement that I've ever been aware of is Bo Jackson. So it was crazy. I actually watched the full 30 for 30 on Bo Jackson yesterday. It happened to be, yeah, awesome, awesome story. So, he got his hip replacement and then only played baseball for 2 more years. But he also was the amount of force that was put on his hip, being his body type, his athleticism, it's not something that's supposed to be able to be done. So I knew that I wanted to do it and that it worked for me because it was my drive leg. It was my left leg and I was a left-handed pitcher. So it just was like able to work. If I was a position player and I had to run the bases all the time and I had to be going in and out the field like and just having those hard, fast twitch muscles working constantly and putting all
Yeah.
that pressure on it, that probably wouldn't have been feasible. But since I was a pitcher, I was able to make it last for 7 years. And even at the
Yeah.
end of my seventh year, I felt better than ever. I could have kept going.
So you did have a complete hip replacement.
I had a
You did
total
went
hip
through.
replacement.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure we must have talked about this. I
Yeah.
think it kind of does ring a bell, but
Yeah.
not the details. I don't know how
Yeah.
detailed we would have got talking about it back then.
It was crazy. I don't know if I was talking about Mac Newton, but Mac Newton is the guy that he's been like my guru and
Okay.
my mental guy,
Okay.
and he's the one that rehabbed Bo Jackson back from his hip replacement also. And Mac had a double hip replacement. He was in Vietnam. One of them he got because he fell out of a helicopter or something in Vietnam. Like all these crazy stories, but he was actually on the 30 for 30 yesterday. He helped Bo mentally and physically get back to a place of being able to play again. So he optimized his chances
Sure.
to make it happen. And he had a couple decent seasons after his hip replacement, but eventually he knew it was just time to retire.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the story of my hip replacement and where I arrived at needing to have the mental game because I was always up against everybody telling me that you shouldn't play. I got signed by the Padres. First, I got signed by the White Sox. I didn't get signed, but I went to Windy City Thunderbolts in the Frontier League in '07. After not playing for 3 full years of college, I only played my freshman year of college, and then I didn't get cleared to play at Washington State for my sophomore year. I got the hip replacement that summer after my sophomore year.
Yeah.
And then I went back and rehabbed at U of A because U of A had interest in me also after my freshman year, but they didn't really want to give me a scholarship. But I went back there. It was close to home. It was in Tucson. I lived in Phoenix, so it made good sense to rehab there my junior year and then be ready to go again my senior year. And I was pestering the coaches, telling them what I was planning on doing. I told them I was going to be ready. I was going to play on a summer ball team and prove that I was throwing 90 again as a lefty, and that I was going to get a shot. And
Yeah.
it worked out. The coach, I pestered him every week my junior year. Every single Monday, I went to his literally for 16 Mondays straight. I went to his office and popped my head in and said, "Hey, do you have a summer ball team for me to play on yet?" And he said no, and he never actually ended up getting me a summer ball team. But he did give me a tryout come fall of the beginning of my senior year. So he let me come out, throw a bullpen, dominated the bullpen. He said, "All right, I want you to be here for the fall, so long as you get cleared to play by the doctors, and you have a shot to make the team, and you just basically as a walk-on, right?"
Yeah.
But a pre-existing walk-on who had this weird circumstance. So I went to the doctors, and the doctors essentially said, "We're not going to clear you to play. You have a hip replacement." And I was like, "Dude, what do you want me to sign?" And I didn't play. So then I didn't end up playing my sophomore, junior, or senior year. My senior year after that, in the fall of my senior year, I was pretty devastated. I was unsure of what I wanted to do, where I was going to go. I had basically come to terms that there was nothing else I could do. And then I spoke to a White Sox scout who is still a mentor of mine, and he suggested that I just give it one more go and go to this White Sox tryout in Tucson on March 3rd of 2007. And it was at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. I went through, after not picking up a baseball for about 2 months, I went through about the best bullpen of my life. Threw about 30 pitches and opened the eyes. I topped out at 87. Um, yeah, so they called me back and said there's a scout that said I can get you an opportunity to go to a spring training invite, and he followed through with that. I ended up going to Windy City. Fast forward a few months, I was 8-0 out of the bullpen. I was 8-0 out of the
Damn.
bullpen in the first half.
Saving games
I had
by
six
winning.
appearances. I had 6 appearances in a row out of the bullpen. 6 appearances in a row where I came in, I put up a 0, and we either were behind or we were tied, and then we ended up coming back
Nice.
and won. The closer of that year on my team, I was the setup man. He was the closer. He broke the record for saves in a season in the Frontier League. So he had my back.
Nice. That was a nice combination then.
Right.
That's
So
cool.
I made the All-Star team, and
Sorry, that's what level?
that was at Frontier League my rookie year.
Okay.
So I didn't play for 3 years in college. I played my freshman year when I was 18.
Oh.
I didn't start playing pro ball until I was 21. And then we won the championship. I made the All-Star team. I got MVP of the championship series.
Damn.
It was a fairy tale. Like,
Wow.
I finished the season 10-2. I got 5 starts also. I wasn't doing so well as a starter. I was still very inexperienced. I didn't have any innings under my belt, really.
Yeah.
Next year, I came in 2008. We ended up winning the championship again. And then I threw a no-hitter that year. I really put myself on the map that year. I threw 90 innings or something, and we won the championship again. I didn't make the All-Star team that year, but I was cruising. I got named the number 6 independent ball prospect in the nation, number 1 left-handed pitcher. Uh, so after that, then I went to Victoria Seals. That year, I started the season 9-0 again and got signed by the Red Sox. So after that first year, I got signed by the White Sox. The same guy that got me the invite to Windy City, tracked me. I kept in touch with him. I was like a professional pest. I knew how to pest people.
Yeah.
I was really good at following up with people, making sure that I knocked on their door and said I'm here to play.
That's huge.
And he said, all right, we want you. We're going to send you to Canapolis and Low A, and we want you to come to spring training. You proved yourself, and then we just have to get you cleared to play with this hip replacement. And again, the White Sox just decided not to clear me to play. But for whatever reason, in indie ball, the only thing I had to do was go with the GM to the bank to get this one piece of paper notarized that said, if anything happens to my hip, I will not hold the Windy City Thunderbolts liable.
Yeah, why can't they do the same thing?
I don't know. I got a lawyer. I got everything, right?
Wow.
A lawyer actually approached me because there was a article about it in Baseball America that year. So,
oh, wow.
So I didn't know what to do. I was like, shit. I guess. Sorry. I was like,
no, you're
right. I'm gonna keep going. I don't. This is why you play indie ball, so you can get picked up. And I just got picked up. I got a scout that invited me to spring training, but out of his control, the human resources department who makes these decisions said you can't come. So I just went back to Windy City. I had another good year, and then the same thing happened after that year. I got invited to go throw at a Padres tryout and hit 90 in the bullpen. I was pitching better than ever. I had the Padres scout, who was one of the higher level scouts, named Grady Fuson at the time. He told me I was one of the best pitchers that would be in their minor leagues. Based on, I don't know if he's pumping my tires, but he's like, based on your stuff, you are already one of our top minor league pitchers based on your stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to say that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I was 22 at that time, 23 maybe, and he actually signed me. They went in, They signed me. I signed a contract. They said, I just need you to go across the street because this was in March of 2009. He said, I just need you to go across the street and get some x-rays because it was right when spring training started and, pitchers and catchers reported. And he said, just go get these x-rays. You're fine. We just need to get the x-rays first. And then when I got the x-rays, 5 hours later, he called me back and he's like, I'm sorry, the contract's nullified. We can't have you here. So I was like, all right, that's 2 times. I'm gonna keep playing again. I'll play again, and then I got an opportunity to go play in Victoria in the Golden League in '09. It was a new team that year, and then balled out. I was 9-0 at the break. I started the All-Star game. The Red Sox scout came, a guy Steve, I forgot his last name, but he came in the dugout after my first inning and said, we'd like to sign you. And I said, I have a hip replacement, right? I have a total hip replacement. There's nothing hidden here. This has already happened twice. I was a little bitter. Like,
It'll do that. Yeah.
we want to send you to Double A
Huh.
and just fly to Boston, see our team of people. I was like, all right, that's it. Going to Double A. And I went to Boston. I got the x-rays. I sat there for 2 days. I saw the doctor who actually worked with Tom Brady to fix his, like, one year he hurt his, like, ACL or something. It was a while back. It was, like, right before that year. So it was in, like, 2008 that I think Tom Brady did that. But he came back fine, and that's the doctor that helped him because he's the New England guy and Boston guy. And essentially, long story short, he just said, we can't clear you to play either. You got to go back. So I was like, what? That was number 3. That was the third time. That was the closest I actually got. They flew me to across the country to tell me no.
Wow.
So I went back to Victoria. I finished the season out. I ended up playing in Mexico the following year because I was like, I can't play affiliated ball. Nobody's going to clear me to play. So I need to go try to figure out a way to make money.
Jesus.
So then my plan was to go play in Japan.
Okay.
At that point, I was like stuck between a rock and a hard place. It was either quit or keep going, knowing that the major leagues was very, very much not possible. The only way that I saw it as being anywhere possible was to go to Japan, and they were down to have me play on a team.
They were,
They,
or if
they
they were.
were, they
Oh, they were.
were.
Okay.
Like these lower levels didn't have a problem with the liability for some reason.
Well, they can just take one simple protocol, like one simple piece of paper.
There's never been a precedent set, right? Except for Bo Jackson. And the idea of a guy playing with a hip replacement is not medically like intelligent, right? There's a liability
But at some
there.
point,
So,
you need to be able to. You are completely sane. You're a
right,
sane person that should have a choice if
right.
you
And
want to
I
take that risk. People jump out
exactly
of airplanes and bungee jump and do all kinds of stupid shit.
people get people get signed before they get their Tommy John. They get signed knowing they're getting Tommy John. They get signed for over $1 million.
Yeah.
So
What's the,
I mean, but there's a
Jesus
precedent
Christ?
set there, though.
Yeah.
Tommy John himself is the one that set that precedent, and he would not have set that precedent and created the Tommy John surgery unless he was addicted to baseball. Because he was 10 years in. He was 10 years in. He hurt his arm, and he said, "Yo, doc, what do we need to do?" Because I've read all about him too.
Okay.
What do we need to do to fix my arm? And he's like, "Well, we got to try something we've never tried before." So he did, but like, there's never probably going to be another 19-year-old athlete that gets a hip replacement and needs to and tries to come back and play. There
Yeah.
might be. I hope there is. I hope I inspire people to try if they are down that wavelength.
Yeah.
But
You're just talking about such a small.
it's such a unique
Yeah.
scenario,
Yeah.
So maybe if I was Aroldis Chapman throwing 99, and they would have been like, it's worth the risk. But they kind of treated me as though I was going to hold them liable for my whole life for workers' comp if something happened to my hip after or something like that. I don't know, dude. I totally had a lawyer that found me from the Baseball America article. To this day, he's still a good buddy of mine. He was trying to be a sports agent. He did like so much work for me for free.
Oh
Like he
wow.
just He just tried to go to the union. We were like on the phone every day, for after the 2010 season. So then I got one more chance. I got one more chance with the Arizona Diamondbacks after I had pitched in Mexico before I went to Winnipeg to play with you. I was able to go and throw for the D-backs, and I was at my peak. I was better than ever. I had thrown 94. I hit 94 in Mexico that year before. So they were still, curious, and then I saw Dr. Lee, who is the main doctor, and I was like, Doc, you know the story, you know what the deal is, you know that this is a weird situation. Like, he's like, I would clear you to play for a year at a time. But it's up to the people that make these decisions. There's people that I literally spent 20 minutes on the phone with the general manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks, Jerry Dipoto. His name is Jerry Dipoto. I was selling him. I was like, whatever you want me to do, anything. I was like, I will sign my soul away. I was like, I don't care what you want from me. I promise I will not hold you guys liable
Yeah.
if I'm paralyzed
Put
for
it
the
in
rest.
writing. Put it in a contract.
Yeah, I'm like,
It's,
I'll be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life because my hip cracked. And I
yeah.
promise I won't charge you guys anything. I won't try to say it's your fault. That's not what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah.
And he listened to me for like 20 minutes, like the general manager.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you even get that call?
There was a guy named Bill Brick who always just looked out for me. He's the one that also worked with the Padres at
Okay.
the time when he was friends with Grady Fuson. So Bill is just a beauty of a dude, and he just, how did he find out about me originally? I don't remember how no, he knew a scout from my pitching coach, my original pitching coach, who was there like with me at the tryout for the Padres. He was just there every step of the way. He's like a father figure for me, kind of a mentor, and always had my back. And he constantly was making phone calls for me too. But like I told you, I was on the phone at least 2 to 3 hours a day with lawyers, scouts, teams, just trying to figure out how to open the door to see what I needed to do because my ability wasn't holding me back. It was just the fact that I had this hip condition. So nobody was willing to take a chance. So that was pretty challenging mentally. I know that was a long story, and that
No,
was
that's no.
yeah. It's
Take as
like
much time as you need. That was I had no idea really. Like I said, it may have came up. I remember having a few conversations with you back then, back in almost 10 years ago, but not to this extent, right? Not the full story, especially because you
right,
were still in the middle of the story
right,
back then.
exactly.
It was current.
Right, and then 2011, I mean, I was the opening day starter for Winnipeg. I didn't have like a standout season that year. I finished 8-4, and I threw more than 100 innings, but it was a solid season.
Yeah,
A good season across the board. I
because you
just,
were there till the final day, right? Final game.
yeah,
Okay.
final game. Yeah, man, we lost on an error. We lost on
Oh, really?
yeah, it was pretty tough. I don't even want to. You remember Lou Ott?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, dude, he had a candy hop to third base. He had
Yeah.
all the time. Our game was tied in the 10th inning, game 5 against St. Paul.
Oh,
He
this is
just
in the championship.
threw it in the dirt. No, it was to go on to
Oh,
the championship.
oh,
I was in the bullpen. Salamita was pitching.
Salamita.
I was in the bullpen. I was getting ready to go in if Sally got in any trouble, but like Sally got a ground ball from one of their hitters. It was just like a high hopper to third base. He had it. He had all the time in the world, and he just threw it in the dirt. And I forgot who our first baseman was, but he couldn't. No, I
Ex-big
think it
league guy, wasn't it?
was Myro.
Myro.
Yeah, I don't think he could pick it out. So we lost on an error. We ended the season.
Was it?
Like
There were guys on base, or that guy ended up scoring?
there was a guy on
Oh,
second, I
got it.
believe. So yeah, that guy ended up scoring and coming around, and they were the home team. I think they won in the bottom of the ninth. And Weber, were you there when Weber was there?
He showed up not too long before I got released.
Yeah. So He had this double with 2 outs and 2 strikes to keep us alive and go to the next
Yeah,
inning.
he could
He
swing
tied
that
it up.
dude.
Yeah, so and then I discovered Mac Newton, who was a huge influence in my life just for working out with him for 2 months. I discovered him after my first season, and he was the one that really got me down the path of focusing on, your mental game. And he said the universe conspires to help you get what you want if you want it bad enough. If you want something bad enough, the universe is on your side. And like that was the first time I ever connected with something like deep like that, like and realizing like if I just stayed in love with the process and I just did my stuff every day that I knew I was supposed to do, then I was going to do something great. So, it didn't end up being the big leagues, but that mindset enabled me to now be an entrepreneur and be able to form my life around what I love, which is baseball, and beyond baseball, which is optimizing like young kids' mindsets, making them understand what's possible, and trying to do that from like a young age. I call it planting champion seeds. Like a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching these kids right now, they don't understand entirely, but you plant that seed, you hear it repeated from multiple different people, and then by the time they are 14, 15, they're like leading themselves day in and day out, and they understand what it means to go out there and get better, and like what it's going to take to separate themselves from everybody else.
Well, when we were growing up, at their age, like the kids, you're what are you, 12? What is the age? You're as low as what, 7, 8?
There's a kid on there that's 8 all the
Okay.
way up to 14 or 15, I think.
Okay. So
He's
when we
going to
were,
be 15.
yeah, so when we were 8 to 14, 15, um, you may hear some kind of, a cliche kind of saying every now and then regarding having fun, have a good mindset or think positive. But we also didn't have access, so through technology, to someone like you or someone like me that are actually have gone through the process, which there were already people like that out there, but connecting them together with the kids was not available.
Right.
You would have to go read a book, or you would have to, I don't even know if they had VHS, documentaries, but you'd have to. It just wouldn't be an easy thing to learn about. So like now, you're able to plant those seeds at an early age, and if they are at least committed to their baseball, refining their craft, they're around you or they're consuming your content either on Instagram, on your through your classes or whatever other avenues you have, like social media. It's like now that can kind of maybe pick up some momentum and start to snowball into a pretty solid mindset that I did not have.
Right.
I mean, that was
Yeah. I know.
my biggest weakness.
Right, and you do lessons, and we have these specialized lessons that we do now, and it's like I never took one paid lesson when I was a young kid. My lessons were from Harold Reynolds, Joe
Morgan.
uh, Morgan, like all the guys that were the Bob Brenly that were given the tips during the Cubs games and the White Sox games and the
Yeah.
Braves games. They're like, for all you guys out there at
Yeah.
home, the reason that like freaking Rafael Furcal did this right here at shortstop was because of this, or Andrew Jones or Chipper Jones. They're up there looking at this pitch because they don't want to swing at this pitch yet. So I was just like a sponge and constantly trying to listen to what those guys were saying. I was watching Baseball Tonight all the time, like I went to as many camps as I could. And the great thing about baseball, I think, too, is that beyond the fact that it's so addicting, like once you really love it, like we're like lifers, like it's something that allows you to, you know, have your own personality on the field. You might not be the most popular. Like I was in this, like I was pretty popular when I was young, but I had a little bit of self-confidence issues with just, I hung out with the cool kids, but I was teased some things, and like it was nice because the same kids that were teasing me were the same kids that I was hitting bombs off of, and I was striking out and making them look silly. So when we went back to school, I was just like, "What do you have to say?"
It
So
was your source of confidence.
yeah.
And the same for me. I mean, I didn't have confidence in myself in any other area of my life than other than baseball.
Hmm.
And like I said, even the thought of like, because I was very, I'd show my anger, I'd slam bats, and
Right.
divorce at a young age. So there was a lot of like stressful family stuff going on that nobody really tried to work me through it.
Hmm.
So that was my outlet, was baseball. But I always, from a very, very young age, I always kind of abused it because when things didn't go my way, when they didn't go my way on the field, I would let my frustrations from home come onto the field.
Hmm.
And I've said this before, like to people, it's like my ability, because I worked very hard. My dad was a professional athlete, played basketball a little bit. My dad's 6'6",
Hmm.
and he was a shooter. He played in Italy briefly, professional. So like the work ethic was always there from having a professional athlete as a father, or a father that was a professional athlete. So I excelled in the physical, arm. So obviously, I was always pretty big. My arm, I always had a better arm. We would long toss and play catch like all the time. We would hit. I had power, the most powerful hitter on like every team I played on, like even in the pro ball, pretty much. But I said it's almost like it was a blessing, but it was also like a curse because I was good and the best player on every team, like no question about it. I was kind of given that. I was kind of, what's the word? They allowed me to act that way
Right.
and not say you act that way or you're on the bench. Right? It
Right.
was never baseball was never taken away from me
Hmm.
to kind of teach me like, oh, maybe I shouldn't act this way. Otherwise, because I want to play.
Hmm.
That would have made me more upset not being on the field.
Right.
So
And
yeah,
I was gonna say, I think it becomes almost like a superstition when you're doing bad. You're supposed to show everybody how mad you are.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I always had. I mean, I don't know if you did it. Like, there's like the guys that would have a bad inning and they would come in and they would just like yell the F word right into their glove.
yeah,
Like, and it's like I even did it a couple times because I saw guys that were doing it. Eventually when if I did have a bad inning, but then I realized how stupid that was,
yeah.
and it's like it's hard though because you want to maintain a high level of adrenaline and competitive nature and spirit, and you're not happy if you're not doing what you know you should be doing or what you're capable of doing. But at the same time, that's just a whole mental game of being able to understand the ebbs and the flows, I think, and yeah, just creating a general understanding of what humility is. Because the majority of guys that we play against in the big leagues, or I mean in the professional level, have always been the best player on their team. Any professional team you're playing on, the chances are they've always been the best player on your team.
The teams that I was on, I was allowed to get away with it,
Right.
to get away with
Well,
acting that way, and and then we didn't really have the awareness as a kid. Most kids, you're not going to have the awareness that, or the know-how that when you act that way, you're actually hurting the next, part of your performance. Like
right.
you're
Right.
hurting yourself on defense now. You made the last out. You're frustrated. You're slamming helmet or cursing in your glove, but it's not setting you up for success. And then you're creating this potential like snowball, downhill.
Right. And I think like you're probably learning this from your mental minute stuff that you're studying right now, but like just the idea of teaching a kid what the concept of failure is when they're young. Like I love the example I got from another teacher of mine who you may or may not know, Wayne Dyer. Have you ever heard of that guy?
Sounds familiar.
Wayne Dyer, he's a stud. He's kind of spiritual and deep, but like
Oh yeah.
he's considered like the father of motivation. He's got
Okay.
stuff like the secrets of manifestation, your erroneous zones, like things that are in your mind that are erroneous. But those are two of his really big ones that I really like a lot. But he says there's, if you're golfing and you have a ball on a tee and you swing and it just dribbles off to the right, you don't fail, you just produce a result. So you're never failing in life, you're only producing a result. And if you can understand that that's not a way to have a cop out, that like it's okay to produce a crappy result, like you don't want to like accept mediocrity for yourself, but at the same time you want to understand that all you did was produce a result, and the only way that the next time you're going to do it and produce a better result is if you take everything from that experience and try to channel it into using that information and that feedback of that result to just hit the ball farther next time,
Like
That's
like you're a scientist, and you just, okay, that's your result. All right, well, I'm going to go back to the drawing board and I'm going to tweak something and see if I
right.
can produce something better.
Right. And that's something that if you're getting in the car when you're 8 and your dad is mad because you guys were hitting all week and you had your hands in one spot and then you were 0 for 4 in the game because you had your hands in this other spot. If dad gets in the car and he's like, why weren't your hands in that spot? Like, it's like the kid already knows his hands, probably knows. Most likely. He's doing it because he knows everything. Second of all, if you're talking to the kid with the mindset of, what kind of results did you produce today? Like, were they desirable? Were they not? Did you have fun? Usually if it's a competitive kid and he was 0 for 4 with a couple of strikeouts, he's going to be pretty devastated and pissed off the way we were when we got in the car, Maybe not when you're 8, probably though. The winners are going to be pretty mad, but like if you just formulate the terminology and the phrasing that you use, it can just absolutely impact the way that you perceive everything from that day on, and that it influences you so much to decide how you're going to process whatever it is that's going on in your game or your life. And it's just, that's why I think, like you said, like you're like a life coach for kids. Like I feel the same way. That's why I created Made Baseball. Isaac Hess baseball didn't like roll off the tongue. So I actually had that in the beginning, but I was like, no, I want to brand it. I want to have like a philosophy behind it. So then I figured that's how
I've actually, it's funny because I'm kind of thinking the same thing, because I didn't know what to call my hitting or like so I just Ferrante baseball, but I've been toying. I've already had some ideas for naming it something different, or at least my media accounts would be something different. I would operate under like Ferrante baseball as a business,
right.
But have like my media have a different name. But sorry,
right.
Go ahead.
No, that's good. Yeah. I think Ferrante baseball rolls off the tongue a lot better. It's like a brand that you can tell it's a name, but
I don't want it to be about like it's about me, because it's really not.
Right. That's what I was thinking when I went to Made. Also, it's like a little more anonymous. It's like a stewardship where everybody has a piece of it. But like, so yeah, I mean, and plus I came up with the cheesy. Sometimes I look at it, I'm like, oh, this is cheese, but like. The young kids get it. Like the young kids who get it, and it gets into their head, and that like, oh, I can be a champion. I have to make myself into a champion. I have to get made. Wow. Like, and it takes some time, I think, for them to be like, what is Coach talking about? Get made. Oh, okay. Made stands for motivation. I have to get my motivation every day. Appreciation. I have to go get my appreciation. Dedication. I have to be dedicated. And how often? Every day. So like, and that's something I'll teach these 8-year-olds. I'll go through my little 5-minute spiel, and by the time I'm done, I've already lost them. Like I've already lost their attention. But I've also planted that seed, and then if I'm repeating that next and next and next, and then I'm making sure they're having fun, then this is something that if they stop playing baseball next year, they're likely going to remember these principles throughout whatever other aspect of life that they're trying to apply. And like be great at. So
like I said, you're teaching something that is it's not just baseball specific. It can be applied anywhere and everywhere, and hopefully that they understand that, which I think you make that known. But like a lot of people can be good at baseball, terrible in their personal life, terrible in communicating, terrible in whatever, just dishonest, being dishonest people, or like but then they can on the field they're just like lights out. They got it figured out. And maybe they have routines and habits, and they have a good mindset when it comes to baseball, and they know how to handle failure on the field. But then when they get off the field, it's out the window. It doesn't transfer over those principles, because I mean, the people that are really successful on the field, they obviously have a good mindset. Otherwise, they would not be able to perform at that high of a level. Right? You will see guys that will get to the big leagues, and then something will happen in personal life, or they don't have the motivation anymore. They sign that big contract, and all their work, all their habits go out the window. And then what happens? They don't perform at that high level anymore, and they're out of the game. You forget about them. Right. So I think it's understanding that it's not just baseball. Like the success, and that was kind of the big moment I had. I started reading because I was bitter about baseball when it ended. So I didn't want to be involved in baseball at first. That's why I started looking into like marketing and online, making money online, because I was kind of in between like jobs and stuff. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I wanted to have that flexible lifestyle. And then I started reading success books, and then mindset, and then it was talking about sports. I'm just like, oh shit. This is the same stuff. Like this is what I needed as a player, and now I'm looking for it like in terms of business. But it's like this is what I needed as a player. Actually, the first thing that really gave me, that really I think got me into the mental game, was I was doing this not network marketing. I was just learning about marketing, online marketing, right? And the guy that I was learning from shared this video with all of the people following him, and it was The Strangest Secret. Have you ever heard of that? The Strangest Secret in the World by Earl Nightingale.
Oh, he's the guy that Wayne Dyer partnered with over the 80s and 90s. Nightingale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Nightingale is like the father of motivation.
Got it. So maybe that's how I know. I've heard of Wayne Dyer. Yeah. So if you have you seen the clip of it or heard the audio? So it's called The Strangest Secret in the World, and it's like a 35-minute speech that he gives, and it was actually he won it was like a record label, or what do you call, sold like 1 million records or something for an audio track, like a what do you call, what's the word? For a non-music, musical record, right?
Oh, okay. CD.
Yeah. So, and basically the whole gist of it is that the strangest secret is you become what you think about.
Right.
And that was kind of the point, is that, and what is the definition of success? And that success is whatever you want it to be, right? It doesn't have to be what society tells you it is successful. You don't have to be a millionaire. You don't have to be a celebrity. You don't have to have 1 million followers on your social platforms. Like that's not success unless you want it to be, you know. But so, anyways, that was kind of what sparked it in me, is that the thinking. It's how you think about things, and that you can literally think about anything, any way that you want. Which is why so many people can argue over the same thing, which is it's basically nobody's right and nobody's wrong, and people just go back and forth arguing over who's right and who's wrong. When you're both right and you're both wrong. Right. Because you can talk about anything in an infinite number of ways. Right. Talk the baseball swing. It's a joke, the coaches that are going back and forth over how you're supposed to swing the bat. There's examples of successful hitters in doing so many different ways. Right. And so many different swing thoughts and approaches, and it's like, but there's coaches saying that Barry Bonds and A-Rod and anybody who's thought swing down was wrong, but yet they hit 700, 600 home runs. How wrong
Right
can
now,
they be?
now it's a marketing campaign that Josh Donaldson has put on. I mean, not really, but like I remember he was on Baseball Tonight, and he's
Yep,
like, if you're a hitting coach, they're in the little studio with like the
I remember.
simulated. Yeah,
Yep.
he's like, if you're 10 years old, guys, and your hitting coach tells you to hit the top half of the ball, tell him no. And I was like, well, that's what I tell all my players because that's how I was taught, and that's what really gave me success. And that also is what I believe ultimately creates a strong top hand and an awareness of what you're doing through the zone as a hitter. You can't teach a kid how to freaking have launch angle when he's just starting. You only can teach that after he's taken tens of thousands of swings and he's committed to the process and he's open to the idea. I think otherwise if you're trying to teach that from a young age, unless you have a very athletic kid who is very also a student, if he's 10 and he's locked into taking his swings on his own and trying out the launch angle, then maybe that can be successful for him and he can make that work in a positive way. But if he's just a kid that's trying to emulate Josh Donaldson, he's bound to strike out and pop up every
You're
single.
you're extremely misled by listening to that because I think that was atrocious
Right,
to go on to be on national television and say that
right.
because
So boldly.
it he couldn't be more wrong. Okay,
I,
and it's because you're telling a kid to now not listen to your coach.
hmm Right, right. That's what I hated about it too. And I just wanted to be
Flat
like
out.
Josh. I wanted to be like Josh. All right, good for you for being a great hitter. Now go be an instructor and
Yeah.
go teach this. So it's like trying to teach a kid who doesn't even know how to dribble a basketball to try to do a like double pivot fadeaway jumper that Michael Jordan's hitting from the corner of the free throw line. Like, it's like that's not how you start it off.
Yeah. Don't
Like,
listen to your coach. Just dunk it.
right,
Just shoot the 40 footer.
exactly. If he
Like
says don't shoot the 40 footer, just tell him no. Like,
just,
okay, dude, great.
it
And
was
this,
a horrible it was a horrible display of this is why he's not a coach, and he
hmm
probably more than likely never will be one with the way that with his mindset. Right,
hmm
things that happen for him, the way they happen for him, it's not the same. There's even another video where Alex Bregman talks about he doesn't use the tee,
hmm
and that the tee creates bad habits for that's for him though. Don't
right.
you're saying it and then you're saying that it causes bad, and now you're going to have kids that I don't know if any kids are listening to that or not. Maybe not now. His credibility might be shot, but now they're not going to use the tee because Alex Bregman. But almost every big leaguer uses the tee.
hmm
There is a purpose. If you know how to use it, you can benefit from the tee. You may not
And
have anybody else throw into you like Alex Bregman does every
the
single
only
day.
way you can discover that is by hitting probably over 100,000 balls off the
The
tee.
tee.
I'm sure Bregman used the tee in high school. He didn't just, there was one Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson supposedly didn't lift. I know he did sometimes, but he wasn't like a big lifter every day. He was just naturally a freak. And everybody in that 30 for 30 yesterday said he literally showed up to practice and would just dominate. Like, and he was actually like button heads with his college coach, or who was it? I think it was his coach in high school or college that like wanted him to be running, 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 and he was like a high intensity guy, and he's like, I had a problem with all this excessive running, and he's a running back,
Yeah.
right? He's like, you're just making me tired. He's like, just give me the ball when I need to run it, and then
Yeah.
I'll run people over or outrun them anyways. Like he knew, but there's one guy that can be like that, and if you have the skills and you can just
Yeah.
do what you do to that level of ability, then you're probably not going to have coaches telling you what to do all the time because you're just when the ball gets in your hands, you're going to get it done.
Yeah.
And when you prove that at the end of the day, whatever works, you don't try to fix something that's not broken. A good coach knows that even if the player is doing something super weird, if he's going out there and going 3 for 4 every day and he's as confident as you've ever seen, you're not going to tell him to move his hands. You're going
Yeah.
to say, "Have a good game today, kid. Can I get you a Gatorade?"
Yeah,
Like,
have some fun. Go out there,
yeah.
have some fun. Launch angle. I
hmm
hear a lot of people argue, and I've even gotten to this one time. I got suckered into it because I just couldn't believe what this person was saying on like a Facebook comment or something, and he was saying, "Oh well, launch angle," because I described the launch angle as an approach. Actually, I think it was on one of my YouTube videos. And he's like, "Well, launch angle is not an approach. It's a measurement, and you can hit the ball down. You hit a ground ball. The ground ball has a launch angle." I'm like, "Yes, I get it. I know that." But when coaches are teaching a swing and they use the term launch angle, it's turning itself into an approach. Now their approach is to create more launch angle. That's an approach, dude. Okay? And clearly these are from, dads that think that they know what they're talking about. And I respect everybody's opinion, but when you are, I heard this saying, and I think it's great. It describes it perfectly. I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson that said this. He said, a lot of people know just enough to know that they are right, but not enough to know that they are wrong.
Right.
You're just misinformed, okay? Because I'm coming from a place where I have tons of experience and a very open mind now. Launch angle creates a mindset that those hitters now are trying to produce more launch angle. And you're giving them this green light to go up there and think launch angle. And what happens is when you go from the cage off the tee, you may be able to produce that perfect launch angle. And they want kids to hit the ball on the top of the cage now. Now you take it into the game. What happens? More adrenaline, more excitement. They start to, what are they thinking about? Because they've been working on it in the cage all day long, and their coach instructor is talking about launch angle all the time to create what? More power, more home runs. So they're going to go into the box now trying to hit home runs. Mm-hmm. And so now, my question to you, which I think will be very valuable for young hitters, for any hitter, if you as a pitcher, you can spot somebody who has a launch angle approach, how are you going to pitch him? Let's say as a right, so you're lefty. Let's say you see a right-handed hitter. We'll do both, righty-lefty. You face a right-handed hitter. Let's say me, cleanup guy. I come up there and I'm like spinning on my back foot, dropping the shoulder, and really trying to achieve launch angle. How are you going to pitch me?
Probably going to throw you up. Throw you probably up and in, but, I automatically feel like I'm going to have the advantage because you're just making it harder for yourself. You're also not being a team guy when you're thinking launch angle. You're buying into the big contracts of Stanton and Aaron Judge and other guys that are known to hit home runs all the time, and you're ignoring guys, in my opinion. Even Mike Trout. Mike Trout hits a lot of home runs, but he's not. And he has a bit of a launch angle, but he's just got such a compact swing, and he can hit the ball anywhere, anytime, with any angle of his bat, I feel like, But
you create launch angle, every swing eventually comes up, and it depends on where you're making contact. Right.
But,
so,
I would consider throwing you up more, but, as a pitcher, I'm always throwing to my strengths anyways, more than I'm throwing.
True, but wouldn't you agree, from a general perspective, like, as a pitcher, and you see a guy swinging like, you've seen the swings online, right? Mm-hmm. Of kids that are really focusing on creating an upward path, which you do create an upward path anyways, but when they're really emphasizing it, wouldn't you agree that that's just a sign for the pitcher that he's going to carve you up?
Absolutely. I think it's, especially for a guy that's trying to achieve that, but he's clearly not an advanced enough athlete to be able to time it properly. Like the question there is your ability to time that swing perfectly. And if you do, then yes, you're going to hit home runs. But let's go take into account the fact that it's not being talked about that we've struck out more guys. Every year for the last 8 years, the number of strikeouts has risen every single year.
Yes.
Because the way you make money is by throwing hard. Everybody's trying to throw 90 and up. That's,
95 and up now.
Yeah, now it's 95. Like, you're not even going to get looked at unless you can throw 95, which is ridiculous. The majority of, but this is how it is now. And like, guys are getting good enough to be able to still pitch and make it work and have good enough command by throwing this hard because training is just getting so much more advanced. But like, for example, I think Brent Portier is great, and he has a lot of good stuff. But since the day that I saw him, I was just like, I'm not focused on being a pitcher when I'm in your ecosystem. I'm just focused on throwing hard. Like, I haven't heard everything he has to say, but if my primary goal each and every day that I come to you is to see what the gun says, then I am getting far away from what I need to be doing psychologically also, in my opinion. Like, what I want to be doing is throwing 88 and having movement and hitting that glove when I want, where I want, instead of throwing 94 and missing out over the plate, because we all know that guys that know the ball is going to come fast, they're going to hit the ball far. So, and now with all this launch angle, they're going to hit more home runs too. So, but I'm also going to get strikeouts. I'm going to strike more guys out. I'm going to walk more guys. So I don't know. I just feel like it's a wild, wild west a little bit again with how things are going in the game and how the different approaches are starting to sort of collide. There's still plenty of old school guys, still plenty of guys that are not thinking launch angle all the time. But like, baseball is a game that has, even in economic recession, continued to raise the minimum wage of players. Each and every year, the minimum wage has gone up. So even in the economic crash in '08, if you look at the players union and the stats, the minimum wage went up after that. Because baseball is something that we need as a society. It's something that we count on. It's something that's part of our it's part of our makeup as for so many people in the country. And now it's what entertains us when we go to be entertained. It's the home run. You know, we need to see a few home runs because that's like the exciting thing. It's not exciting to go see a 2-1 game with like 3 manufactured runs scored. You know,
Small ball.
that's small ball. You know, that's not what entertains people. So unless you're a pitcher who loves being able to be a pitcher, not a thrower, then you appreciate all the pitches that it takes and all the intelligence and cunning of a pitcher to get guys to hit the ball, you know, soft contact. Like, that's what I teach from the beginning too, and that's hard because like you probably struck everybody out when you were young all the time. Probably walked some guys too. You probably were never thinking, I want them to hit the ball. I never thought that. I always was a high strikeout, high walk guy. I was always a grit my teeth and throw it harder guy instead of a use my mind and throw it softer guy. You know, you have to find that like balance. You have to be able to know when to press the pedal and say, I'm throwing this ball by you right now. I don't care if you're on it, I'm throwing it by you. And then you also have to be able to say, no, that's not going to serve me right now. I'm actually going to take 3 miles off here, and you're just going to hit a weak grounder to my third baseman, and he's going to get you out. So,
Yeah, I don't know how
because
many times I've faced guys where, I'd be in, whether let's say in high school where I'm like 80, I was 89 to like maybe 91. And I'd face a couple good hitters that could be right on it, and they kept fouling it off, and I just kept, no, I'm going to throw it by you. But, I'm stuck at like that 91. They're fouling it off, fouling it off, fouling and it's like 10 straight foul balls because I'm just like getting more like, trying to throw it by them, but I didn't have any more in the tank at the time. Or maybe I did. That's
right.
Ironically, I may have if I wasn't so tense and trying to muscle it. I may have gained an extra mile an hour, right? Or thinking about trying to locate the fastball differently, right? Or change his line of sight rather than kind of just humming it like maybe belly button belt high, or break the slider. I always had a good slider. Why wouldn't I throw a slider? But then you get that ego gets involved, and then just like, no, I'm gonna throw it by you. But I wasn't smart, and then it could lead to walking the guy, or the guy eventually turning on getting one fair and driving it in the gap.
Yeah.
Rather than being smart and adjust.
Right. Something that was always my problem is I oftentimes would be at like 90 pitches after 5 innings.
Yeah.
And it was because even if I only had like 2 walks, because I would have guys that would not be able to hit my fastball, but they would be able to foul it off. And I would have multiple 8, 9 pitch at bats because it would just be like, full count, Throw a fastball. He knows it's coming. He can't catch up. Same thing. He knows he's coming, can't catch up. Okay, I got him. I finally got him to pop out the center. Or I finally blew it by him, or I finally walked him. But that took 7, 8, 9 pitches. And then, crap. If I would have just taken 4 or 5 miles off and I would have focused on locating it, then I would have either given up a single early in the count, and I would have done the same thing on the next batter, but it would, instead of a single, it would have been a double play. And instead of having like a single and a double play ball in 6 pitches, I now have a strikeout and a walk in like 15 pitches. And then if that's what you're doing time and time again, then you're just screwing yourself. Like you're just making it so much easier for your defense to make errors, and you're making it so much harder on your arm. You're making it so much more boring for people
Oh yeah,
overall.
the tempo of the game, your defense is out on the field for way too long each
Right.
time.
Right.
Especially if you got
So,
the other teams kind of shoving a little bit. Then it's like you're in there, 1, 2, 3, boom, and you're back out there for another 20, 30 pitch inning. It's like,
exactly. I had probably more 20 pitch innings than I would have been, proud to. I would always find a way to get out of it. Like I
yeah,
had enough stuff. My mind was just always bulldog all the time. It was never like I don't know what like
finesse.
yeah, it wasn't much finesse. Like until later on in my career, after I put in Mexico, I realized like throwing slower can be better sometimes. But even in Mexico too, they're like, "Oh, gringo, you throw hard. Just throw the fastball. That's all you need, and throw it harder." Because they're not used to seeing it very fast in Mexico, but like
Yeah.
they can still hit it. So
Well, and it's good to know, especially if you have the secondary stuff, that you let them know that you have it. Just letting them know. Elevate one. Whoo. It's like, ooh, shit, that guy's got something. Now I gotta be ready for that. And then you're just carving.
right,
If you've got that stuff, that if you've developed those pitches, and then you use that fastball when you need it. It may not even be, maybe just to get ahead here and there, or just to elevate on a guy. Like I said, let them know you have it. Maybe
right,
if you have the ability to throw in confidently, throw in, show him, ooh, guy's got some heat there.
right,
Then it's in their mind now. Now you can kind of play with them because they may never see it again, but they know you have it.
right.
So especially lefties were tough, man. Good lefties in college or lower levels, like we just didn't face good lefties. So when I got into pro ball, I hit righties better than lefties for the first couple of years. Not by much, but I think by my 3rd year with the Rockies, it finally flip flopped where I started hitting lefties better than righties. I was able to. I mean, they were eating me up on that changeup, low and away changeup. I just could not, with my overly aggressive approach, which I had most of the time. It just didn't allow me to stay on that, especially stuff with the running away from me. Like I would just wait. I would eat me up.
Right.
But yeah, eventually my 3rd year, I started to hit lefties really well. Hit a couple home runs, a couple oppo home runs, like off of changeups. Started to stay on the ball longer. But that like bulldog mentality certainly doesn't work for hitting.
Right.
It does not work for hitting.
Not at all. It's like doing that if you're playing golf in a way, like it's
Yeah,
not.
it doesn't. Believe it or not, I actually got away with it pretty well as a pitcher. I had some of the best outings I ever had. I had to get mad. I had to get
Yeah.
mad.
Yeah.
Then again, I could be wrong. I could have had maybe a little bit more had I backed off a little bit. But typically, there would be the days where I was just kind of going through the motions, and then something would happen. I'd get pissed, and I'd jump 4 or 5 miles an hour, just because
Right. Right.
it was in my training though, because I trained long toss and I threw the crap out of the ball all the time. So when I got into games, if I was just kind of going through the motions, my mechanics maybe weren't necessarily great. But then it took me to get mad, and I would actually be more accurate. It's funny. Very few people, I think, that doesn't really work for everybody. But for whatever reason, it got to the point where I wasn't trying to nibble on the corners. I just come at you, and I
Right.
was able to get away with it and throw strikes.
And you perceive that now as being mad then, and yes, that's because at the time you felt that, but like
Yeah.
you, I think, are able to learn what that means in the moment when you have the harnessing of the mindset. You're able to learn that I'm competitive and I'm gonna eat you for lunch right here, but I'm also gonna maintain the mainframe. I'm gonna maintain what I'm thinking right here, and I'm gonna stay in the moment, like Bruce Lee. Like
Yep.
I saw you had that on your blog. Like I
Yep.
think baseball players should think like Bruce Lee, or I always say like ninjas. Like you know, fighters never get in fights. A real fighter never is angry. That's the word. Like
Yep.
a true fighter never gets angry. He fights, but like he's not angry. He's just kicking your ass.
Because the
Like,
emotion
but
is going to ultimately you're going to lose.
right, yeah.
You're too emotional.
Like you can be competitive and you can really want it and you can have some chip on your shoulder because maybe that guy threw at your teammate last game or something, but ultimately it's just a matter of finding a way to meditatively like channel it for the most positive result that you
Getting
can.
into the present.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you gotten into? Have you ever read The Power of Now?
I started. It was pretty. I started reading it, and I started listening to his audiobook too. He's got a
Puts you to sleep.
yeah, he's got a hard voice to listen to.
I got it. I was able to get past it because I just thought everything was just so like kind of mind blowing. Because it was the first time
Uh-huh.
hearing it. It was like the first like spiritual book that I had read,
Hmm.
or the audiobook. But I thought it was. I was like, man, holy crap! Like that's the zone. I mean,
Hmm.
that's when you're in the zone. You're in the
Right.
present. You're in the now. Nothing. Everything is just. It's easy. You're not concerned about your last at bat. You're not thinking about even your future at bat. I mean, you're not even really even maybe not even thinking about what pitch is coming. You're just seeing it and hitting it
Right. For sure.
like, and it's happening, and you're still making outs, but you're not focusing on the outs,
Right.
right? You get a hit, and you're just kind of free. You're not even really thinking about the hits. Like
Right.
they're just coming, and you're just in that flow state, right? You're in the zone, and that is the power of now. Is that there is no the mind has been removed because the mind is your past and is your future, and it's information, right? It's
Right.
projected ideas. They don't exist. The future doesn't exist.
Right.
The past doesn't exist. The spiritual side has been pretty interesting, just obviously from a personal level, but how it applies, how it can actually apply to baseball.
Right.
As far as,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think it's funny too because like I when I started Made as a 13U team and a 14U team, and I kind of just tried to jump in because that's challenging to do. Any legit 13 or 14-year-old is probably going to want to play with the team that they've already established, even if it's daddy ball, if they're been playing with their team since they were 10 or 9 or something, or B, they want to play with an established team that's not daddy ball. So it's going to be hard to get a good team of 13 and 14-year-olds that are legitimately trying to go play in high school. But I was able to pull it off and get two teams fielded that had at least 10 players each and up to like 11 or 12, like a paid business, like a monthly thing. So I offered up to 4 practices a week, which I realized obviously was too many, but like it would be like just a hitting practice and then like a fielding practice and then an optional practice and then an optional yoga session too. So during the yoga session, we would talk about all the mental stuff and like we would actually have a specified period of time where we would talk about this stuff, like we would, but I never got that when I was a young kid or 12 or 13-year-old. We didn't have any practices or like blocked time to talk about the mental part of the game where it was like we have a journal, we're taking notes, this is something we're taking time for. We're not just hitting every single moment, you know. Getting our reps in and getting our muscle memory is important, but getting our mental muscle memory is equally as important. So you got to make sure that you're giving attention to both of those. And I think if you're smart enough, outside the box, we it's still looked upon as like outside the box, but it's starting to become more natural in the world, I think, to integrate this stuff. But if you're doing this from a young age and you're trying to get your 8-year-olds identifying with some of these concepts, like, God, the sky is the limit, like you are creating champions. If you're staying congruent and consistent with your message throughout the time that they're coming up, then I think that like you're inevitably going to create amazing players and people. So like you're creating captains. You're not just creating dudes that can get out there and help out. Like each player on your team should be thinking that he is trying to be the captain.
Yeah.
Like that's the way I looked at it. But
yeah, and then understanding like being a leader or being a captain, like what that means. That it's not necessarily something that you like force, right? You lead by example, so you do it for yourself, right? You can be a leader. You don't have to boss people around. You know what I mean?
right,
A boss is not necessarily a leader, and a leader is not necessarily a boss. So like a leader
right,
doesn't have to be a coach. It helps. And that's part of the problem too, is that a lot of coaches themselves are not leaders.
mm-hmm.
They don't practice what they preach.
Right.
And kids learn from that. They see right through you, whether they know it consciously or not.
Right.
They can see that you're full of shit.
Right. I agree. Like,
if you're telling kids that they need to eat well and be healthy, and you're 120 pounds overweight,
right. Exactly.
they know that. Like I said, whether they've actually consciously think it is a different story, but they know that what you're saying can't be true to an extent. Like it must be false to an extent because you don't display it.
Right.
Taking a physical trainer that's not in shape. Are you going to listen to them? Are you going to listen to them?
Right. Exactly. You might, but
You might.
you're gonna ask them like, did you do this today? Did you? Because it kind of looked like all you did was eat Cheetos today and drink soda.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So being a leader is something that you can become by taking care of yourself and doing the things that can help you be successful, help you be a better teammate, help you be a better person, player, all those things. You're now setting an example because you're not trying to lead.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like leadership should be, at least in my opinion, like something that happens naturally through you doing you.
Right. Yeah. Leadership is a great name for a young kid to identify with that concept too. Just having I think all kids should be exposed as soon as they start sports. If you have 2 practices a week, there should be 10 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes of those. You usually maybe get 90 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes for a practice. And especially if it's like age 10, then it's probably just 90 minutes. It should be like 90 minutes for this, and then all right, we're wrapping up 15 minutes early, and I want you guys to take a knee, get out your journal, and we're going to talk about leadership. Because you need to understand these concepts. You need to understand that if you want something bad enough, the universe is on your side. You will get it if you want it. If you're just saying you want it, you're floatingly in the world like a butterfly, then the universe doesn't get that. But if you write it down specifically how you want it, what you want it to look like, what you want it to smell like, what you want it to feel like, then the universe is going to go ahead and say, hey, we're here for you. We're going to do the things that need to be done in order to make this happen.
And you'll start to see the opportunities for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Especially if you open your journal and you rewrite it every day. And then you refine it every day and you make it even clearer every day, because clarity is going to be something that, like I taught in my class just over last week. I talked about what the message of clarity is. And I'm like, even adults struggle with clarity. Most adults struggle with what they want to do with their life, even when they're 45 and 50. They still don't know what they really want to do.
Yeah.
So that's what I said. Like, if you have clarity, you have so much advantage. And like you probably had some of this. Like I had ultra clarity when I was 11 years old, and I had my first truly successful baseball season. And I felt that like what I talked about earlier about like being able to go to school the next day and be like, what'd you say to me? Oh yeah, what happened last night when I struck you out 3 times and you couldn't even get close? And then I hit a bomb off you too? Okay, big dog. So
Yep.
I knew for sure, I was clear in my mind that I wanted to play in the big leagues, be on the Diamondbacks, win game 7, have everybody rush the field and tackle me, and have a World Series ring and be an integral part of the team. Not like I just wanted to make it to the pros, like I
Or
knew
be a
what
millionaire.
I knew
It's
exactly
not
where I wanted to go. I didn't know all those details when I was 11. Like I talked about refining over time. When I started understanding that, like I was like, okay, this is what I really want. This is what I really, really want. Okay, now this is what I really, really want. All these details. But when I was younger, I was like, I definitely want to make it to the big leagues, and I definitely want to play for the Diamondbacks because they were the home team. When I was in AZ, they started I think in 2000, or I think they started in '99. So that's when I really started getting serious about baseball like the same year that they started. I was like 13. I was serious about it when I was 11 and 12, but I was like knew I was playing in high school, knew I was going to do everything I could to go play in college.
The vision got further ahead.
Right. So
Nice.
Yeah,
So even though your career didn't turn out the way that you thought or that you had dreamt, that your vision didn't come true, what do you say to that? Like, what's your thought process on it now? Because a lot of people would say, or even myself, at the end, when I was done playing, there were thoughts of like being a failure. That, what am I now, kind of thing. Like, so what do you think, looking back at your career now and where you are now, how it went down?
Great question. I mean, I tried to come back actually in 2016 for 2 games because I felt great. I was working out super hard.
From when was the year? When was the last year before that?
13.
Okay, so 3 years out,
Yeah,
or 2 years out.
Middle of the season, 2.5 years later. So,
Okay.
because I was still throwing hard. I was throwing 90. Like I threw
Yeah.
with my lessons all the time. Like I still had all my stuff. I was playing in men's league games. Like I was dominating. I was throwing 15, 20 strikeouts in a game. So like just mopping up. So I was like, shit, I want to possibly go back and see what happens. But I stopped for a reason because my heart told me I was done, not because I was quitting. It was just I felt like I was destined to do something bigger, and I almost felt like in a way baseball had proven itself to me that like I couldn't achieve what I was trying to do like on a bigger stage if I just kept pedaling around the next opportunity to play an indie ball. Like I could have played indie ball still, like
same here. Yeah.
but like I was like, they're all telling me that like it's not worth it if I have my hip, like if I'm not progressing, I am putting my hip in harm's way, to be real. But if I'm not progressing each year, I'm not trying to just hang around, like I'm not trying to take these inherent risks. That's kind of like in this unknown territory unless I'm consistently moving up. And I was doing that for the first 7 years, like I finished in the Atlantic League. And I played in one more little hometown league in Phoenix. That was a Freedom Professional Baseball League. I don't know if you heard of that, but like that was just like 4 teams, and it was only around for 2 years. But it was legit for like 2 years. It was legit enough.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, did I make it to the big leagues? No, I don't. But I feel like I was always wanting to be an entrepreneur or really make an impact anyways. And I feel now like this is my big leagues, Plus, everything I did up until this point has brought me to meeting my wife and, like brought me to having these epic classes that I'm getting paid for, that I'm literally just being able to bring old friends on. And to me, it seems like almost crazy because it's so much fun, but the amount of value that is offered to these younger guys, that they get exposed to what we're having to say, and like our hearts are out there on the line, like, man, like I feel like it is a huge impact on every single one of these kids, even if they're not super serious about baseball. They're hearing things that like maybe their parents are never even going to tell them. Maybe they will hear from a good coach eventually one day, but like because we're so passionate about it, like, but did you make it to the big leagues? Did you get to taste it? Did you get to experience that paycheck? No, but like I feel like I'm on a path to be something much bigger even now. But then if I was even in the big leagues now, and I would have been a left-handed situational pitcher trying to just hang in the bullpen and be a one out, one inning guy
Yeah.
probably. Maybe be a starter if I don't know, who knows? But like that was what they told me I would be if I made it to the big leagues, likely. So I wouldn't be a household name. I would just be making $1 million each year. I would be happy with that by all means, but it's a win-win in the way I look at
But
it.
maybe you wouldn't be doing what you're doing right now.
I
Or at least not
probably
yet.
wouldn't.
Maybe,
Yeah, I
right?
wouldn't.
Who knows?
I don't know. I don't think who knows. You can't predict the future. The future doesn't exist. All you could
Yeah.
do is optimize today, and I feel like that's something that baseball definitely helped me connect with, because there's always something to improve in baseball, and you connect to that mindset, and then that spills over into everything else that you're doing, and trying to see ways that you can just squeeze the most out of whatever it is that you're interested in and be the best you can possibly be in that, just because why not? That's the way I look at it. Like, why wouldn't you? Life is short. You don't know what you're going to get. So you might as well try to have the most fun and be the best while you're at it. And, just leave a mark the best way that you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm. It's crazy because it almost sounds like. I mean, it's like basically exactly how I would have described. Just there was always. I felt like you said, that something a little bit bigger than you. And I think that this is a common thing just in human beings. Like there is something within us that wants something bigger, right? Like we're constantly seeking to expand. When you
Right.
think it's just you, right? In terms which is I think why it leads to a lot of problems when you're only focused on yourself expanding,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because what it really is you're trying to expand your impact more so, right? How
Mm-hmm.
you feel good when you help somebody out without any kind of benefit, right?
Right.
With nothing expected in return. That's why that feels like so good, like for your soul. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think when I got to the point where it's like, man, I want to make an impact. Like if I made it to the big leagues, I think about this now. It's like if I made it to the big leagues, that would have been great. One guy would have made it to the big leagues. But if I can help other kids, that if that's their goal, great. Maybe I can help multiple kids achieve their goals, big leagues
Mm-hmm.
or not, whatever their goals may be. That's more impactful than just me making it. Just
Mm-hmm.
me making millions of dollars. Like you said, yeah, that'd be great. But then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. And
Right.
I might not have met my wife yet. And I might not have my
Mm-hmm.
daughter yet. So yeah, once we get to that point, it's like, holy crap. Everything happened the way it should have.
Right.
I wouldn't be as developed as a human being. And
Mm-hmm.
it's always like it's not ending. I still have things that I want to improve on myself and need to improve on.
Right.
But it's like understanding that that's the process, right? It goes beyond baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And that just using baseball as a tool to teach these kids this. And I'm even thinking about doing like a YouTube video too. Is like why your goal should not be major leagues. Your goal should be something greater, because at some
Yeah.
point your career's gonna end, whether it's your last game as a senior in high school, or
Good.
you're a Hall of Famer. Like you're gonna finish your playing career, and at that point, it's what you have beyond baseball is going to be what's most important. And so I was thinking a lot of players run into trouble with identity when baseball's over. Your identity is so attached to baseball that you don't know who you are when it's gone.
Right.
You can go into alcohol, you can get depressed, you can get into all these things. Even it's funny enough. You ever hear about the what was it, Apollo 11 landing on the moon?
Yeah.
Was it Apollo 11? That they went at some point after returning from the moon. They had some depression. I forget which ones in particular, but they experienced depression, and it was basically they described it as they didn't know, they had nothing else
Right.
pulling them. Like their whole life was walk on the moon,
Right.
and then once they did it, then what?
You got like nothing else to chase.
There's
Yeah, at
nothing
that
else to
point.
chase. So there's actually a thing in the mental performance certification I'm doing where I talk about it's what is it? It's MV. The first two are M and MV. I think it's like MVP, but I forget what the P is. M is for mission, and there's no deadline. Your mission is like what you would want on your tombstone, or like what you would want people to say about you, either as a human being, as a person, a man, or as a baseball player. So if you're using it for a sport, when your career is over, what do you want people to say about you as a player? Okay, so that's your mission. And then your vision is more dead. They have like a finish line. So like I want to accomplish XYZ, right? I want to win an MVP or be an all conference or be a D1 or a professional player, something that is like, right, that has a finish line. I forget what the other part was, but I really just want to talk about the mission and the vision. Is that most people maybe have the vision, but they don't have the mission. And I think that that's what you and I have found. It's like now there's a mission, and the mission is to make as much impact and develop men, from boys into men and good human beings. So that goes forever. We can do this until we croak. We'll be on a Skype call, and we're just gonna keel over.
Exactly.
Right.
And you're always I mean, like, I think your mission is your why. Your mission is the source that pumps your heart, that like circulates your blood. That there's like the fabric of what your DNA is. And the more that you understand that and connect to it, the more that you're going to make an impact no matter what it is that you're doing. I don't care if you're braiding hair, or if you're going to connect with somebody who's going to make an impact if you really care about it and you know that you're trying your best at it to improve every single day.
Yeah.
And I think that's what baseball gave me at the end of the day, was just the connection, not to trying to make it to the big leagues, the connection to improvement every day in some way. Like, sometimes you hear from a good teacher, and then eventually you turn that into like a higher level of intelligence to where you're just trying to be creative to get better. Like, you also understand that you need to always be second guessing your routines, because as soon as you get comfortable, you need to find a way to get uncomfortable again. You need to find a way to put a little pressure on yourself if you want to continue self development and growth, whether it's pressure or if it's whatever you want to call it. So, but yeah, and then the other thing, it's like, we talked about this in class, I think on Monday or Tuesday, and I was just like, I want you guys to write this down. One word can change your whole life. One word can change your whole life and the way that you're looking at everything. And it's either, so many people in life ask the question, why did this happen to me? And then those are the guys that are the victims. And then the champions are the ones that say, they just change one word and they just say, why did this happen for me? I'm sure you've already heard that before, but like you tell that, yeah, you tell that to an 8-year-old, and the 8-year-old starts looking at like, oh, I just stubbed my toe, or oh, I just tripped and everybody's laughing at me. Instantly, I create ownership and I create self-confidence if I say, why did that just happen for me? Well, I know I'm not going to trip over that little area again, or maybe I need to learn how to take a better step, and I can laugh at it. And if I said, why did that just happen to me? And then I just down spiral.
Why
Day,
me?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you say same thing when you strike out, why did that just happen for me? Like, what happened for me in that strikeout? Why did I end the game in the championship? Like, that's a tough thing to think about and to connect to, but you got to be a super mind warrior to be able to say, why did that happen for me? I know I'm a winner. I always will be. I didn't win this year, but I know I'm a winner even though I lost this year. Next year, this is not happening again, or whatever, however you want to frame that. But like, why did that happen for me? What can I learn from that? Because I know I'm going to be in that same situation next year. Yeah, so I think that's a fabric thing that, like, parents have to, as soon as you have kids, like, you have to be able to teach that arranged mindset. That's a way that you arrange your mind before anything happens. You already, and it's hard to do consistently, to ask the question, why did that happen for me?
Sure, especially if that's how your parents, if that's their mindset, like, you are going to adopt that mindset more than likely, because there's not going to be a bigger influence in your life than the two people you're around most often.
Right.
My parents were horribly negative.
Really.
I mean, I was very growth mindset when it came to baseball. That's why the rest of my life I didn't have a growth mindset. That's why like it can be in different areas. If you have a growth mindset, doesn't mean you have a growth mindset in everything. Typically, it's where your confidence exists. So if you're confident in your abilities in baseball, you probably believe that you can get better because you work hard. But then if someone told you, well, your writing skills in your English class, you're like, well, I'm not a writer, or I hate reading, or I hate writing, and it's just like I just can't do it. I can't. Well, then, it's like it can be compartmentalized rather than trying to have a growth mindset in everything. It's like I'm not crazy about writing, but if I put in effort, I can be better.
Exactly.
If I choose to do it, and that's just the language alone, how you say it. I may never choose to be a writer or write a book, but I know that if I applied myself, I could probably produce a pretty decent book. It wouldn't be a Hemingway, but I can write a book. You know what I mean? If I wanted to.
Right.
And so just the kids just understanding that you're not doing something because you can't do it, or you're not doing something because you can't do it. Maybe you just choose not to do it.
Yeah, you're setting up blockages that don't need to exist.
Yeah, so that like baseball, because that's your confidence, is that that's the only thing you're good for. And I think that's part of the identity like issue, and like same thing with failure. So like identifying with, this is something I wanted to mention earlier. It's like people can be, we tend to use, or people will use the word to describe people. That guy's a failure. That guy's a loser. This girl's a loser. She's a loser. He's a loser, right? Parents and people use that term to label somebody. And it's the same word that we use to describe when you don't succeed in a sport. Failure. And so I think the association, that's where like the language, the linguistic part gets crisscrossed.
Right.
You cannot be a failure. Like you said earlier, that's just a result. It's just it's an undesired result. That's it. You are not a failure. It's something you do.
And that's
fail, but you are not a failure.
Exactly. And that's why I've created, I mean, you probably noticed in class, I said the word champion. Like that is my brand now. Like I say the word champion all day, every day. Everybody at my restaurant when I worked there before, they know me as champion. Like I created a nickname for myself because I called everybody that. And now it's just something that I own. Like I didn't intend on that in the beginning. It's even, so like if you can just navigate into a young child's brain and help him understand the power of his language, then everything in his life totally changes in such a way that they start believing anything is possible. That's another thing. Like if anybody has ever written a book, if anybody has ever climbed Mount Everest, if anybody has ever done anything, I could do it because it's been done.
It's been done by a human being.
I don't know if I have the time or if I have the passion for it.
Yeah, exactly.
If somebody has created a WordPress website or something, or I can do it if it's been done. So that's just a mindset that I have also. But
and the funny thing about that is that most things that people want are things that have been done. Yeah. Most people don't want to do things that have never been done.
Right.
So
if they are fathoming up something that has never been done, then they're probably on the right track.
Yeah. Then great. Then you go for it, and that's why new things get accomplished. But for the most part, if you ask a kid what they want to become or what they want to do with their lives, they're going to want to do something that has been done before. Therefore, it's possible.
For sure. I got a little story that like really, really dictated the vocabulary for me, and it started when I was 22. It was about 6 or 7 months after I stopped working out with Mac. Because going to Mac Newton, like I went in, you had to pay $50 just to meet with him, just to get an hour of his time, and he would evaluate you. At the time, I was like, "What? I gotta pay $50 just to sit down with this guy?" But then I realized that was cheap. Now that like I understand the value of what happened, and he said, "This is what you're gonna have to do if you want to work out with me. You got to do this, 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 and this just to get in the door." And I was like, "All right, I already got these two down. Like I'm healthy, I'm doing this, but I'll fix this and I'll fix this, and I'll see you on Monday." And he was like, okay, it's gonna be $650 a month, and I was like, I can't do that. I just made $600 a month my first year of pro ball. So he's like, I'll see what I can do. Come back to me in 2 days, and or email me in 2 days, and I'll tell you what I got. And I did, and he's like, you got a scholarship. It's gonna be $200 a month, and even then I was like, ugh, like $200 a month, but now I mean, if you're making enough to be able to get by, that's a tiny price to pay when you're considering the value you're getting for it. But I
Yeah.
made that work, right? I offered the cleanest studio. I was like, whatever I need to do, I want to work out with you. You're the guy, right? Good choice on my part. So he opened a restaurant just to the space next door to him in Phoenix. And he was going to call it Mac Daddy's 3-2 because he made you eat three things and drink two things. You could eat green vegetables, fruits, and lean meats, nothing else. Five green vegetables. There's just five that you were allowed to eat. He served lean meats and fruits, and then you could drink fruit juice or vegetable juice or water. So it was 3-2. So like you're putting optimal things in your body if you're working out with him. There is no other way, and you're supposed to write down everything you ate too. Anyways, so over time he had his restaurant, and it just shot to the moon, I think, and he wasn't a restaurateur, and over time it just started going down, and he was not able to keep it going. And I called him, and he actually left a message on my voicemail, and he said this. Because I asked him, I was like, "Hey, Mac, just wanted to check in, wanted to let you know everything's going great." Like I just felt obligated to check in with my teacher, and I was like, I'm doing what you taught me. I'm still going hard, you know. Like, I hope the restaurant's going good, and I'd love to hear from you. And he called me back, and he's like, "Hey, Isaac, good to hear from you." He's like, everything's good. We're doing great. He's like, uh, babbled on for like 10 or 15 seconds about that, and then he's like, the restaurant's not doing so great, but we're just responding like the champions we are, and we're making it work. And it just like rolled off of his tongue. He's like, we're just responding like the champions we are, and I'll never forget that one statement. And I was like, that guy is a fucking champion. Like he said that, like that's a big economic thing that he's putting a lot of money and it's not working, and restaurants are not easy, and I understood that because I worked at a restaurant also at the time, and I was starting to understand that. So I was just like, wow, I want to think like that about
Yep.
everything.
Yep.
Like no matter what's happening, we're always going to land on our feet. We already know that. Like there's no question that I'm not going to land on my feet. I've already made that choice.
Yeah.
I wrote that down to remind myself sometimes, like you will always land on your feet. Like don't be afraid of taking a risk. Take the risk, knowing that you're only going to learn from it, and knowing that you're going to be able to ultimately utilize that lesson to improve whatever it is that you're going to go attempt to achieve next. So,
Yep. Well, if you think about it this way, most people that want more, right? They want something better than what they already have. So they're contemplating taking a risk. But there's also the risk of not taking.
right.
So
Yeah.
I think we have a tendency to think about only the negative things that can go wrong, when it's very simple to think what if it works, even what if it doesn't,
Right.
but then when the second time we try it works, or the third time or the fourth time, and then that's when you get, like in your case, the resilience of keeping bouncing back when you were told no about your hip. But
Right.
you don't care. You love what you do, and that is, you set your vision, your goal, and you were going to go after it until time ran out, or until
Right.
something bigger called on
Until
you.
until I
Yeah.
learned, like, and then that's another thing, like I think you have to understand how to listen to your heart. And if your heart is telling you something, you don't just put it on the back burner. Like you let your intuition guide you. Like, and you'd really do your best to ask, because your intuition knows.
Your
Like your
intuition, and
intuition.
it's not appreciated, or it's not it's underrated, I guess you could say. People think that your tuition, or your intuition is not credible. Like,
Right.
we're drifting away from that because everything is so, scientific now, and the data and the analytics. It's like, but that's kind of like the physical world, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can record what you can see, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
understanding that there's that other side that you can't, the intangible. Like, that's why the mental game is ignored, because nobody can see it, right? It's like,
Exactly.
you just think that that kid has got more talent than the other kid,
Mm-hmm.
when maybe the other kid is actually has just the same abilities. Most likely they do, but they just don't have the mindset or the confidence or the mentality to be able to produce the results that the other kid's producing.
Right.
You
I was
know,
gonna say
like,
too. I mean, if there is anybody still listening out there by the time we get here, as we're closing up, I would say from all this, one thing that any listeners out there that I could give them as a takeaway is pick a word or a few words. Like it's a very tangible thing to do. Pick one or two words that like you identify with and just use that word consistently as much as you can. Like I'll always be like, God, babe, this is a champion breakfast. Let's go clean the house like champions. Let's go. Everything I do, I'm trying to be the best at. I want to, whether it's the best or not, I'm just trying to do it great.
to the
I want
best of your ability.
Right. Like that's the rule. The rule is to try your best no matter what in the moment and have fun with it at the same time. So like you pick a word or two words maybe that you identify with and try to inject them into your vocabulary and then treat those as almost like a vocabulary workout. Like find places in your life, the little details and the little nuances that you can just insert it in, just stick it in there and try to use it a couple times a day and just see what starts happening, whether it's champion or like, something I always tell my players too is like, if I ask you how you're doing, like, I don't want to hear you say good. I want to hear you say, I'm great. I'm excellent. I'm fantastic. Or, like, I'm doing pretty good. This happened today, but otherwise just your FTP, your fundamental thought process to respond is, I'm doing amazing. Even if you're not, maybe.
Yeah,
Depends.
self-talk is I mean, it's really, it's your internal thoughts. I mean, you're thinking in your own voice. So I mean, it's your self-talk. If you aren't using exciting language,
Right.
like
You're living dull.
huh?
I said you're living a little too dull.
Yeah, because
You're not
you can.
getting
I
much.
mean, there's sometimes like I'll say things. Sometimes I'll have a thought that I want to put on like either a podcast or like a YouTube video, and I'll kind of just say it out loud, just like kind of rehearsing it almost in a way, and I give myself chills. Right?
Nice. I
So
like that.
I'm using the words that are like they're showing that I have the ability to like excite myself. Like every like cell in my body is like gets chills from just the words that came out of my mouth, which are essentially in my head too. So it's like understanding that if I didn't say those words, I wouldn't have got chills. I wouldn't
Right.
have got excited.
That's another good one for the listeners. Like if you're in the shower and you want to play in the big leagues, just say the words, I am going to play in the big leagues. Like
Yeah.
if you verbalize it with actual audio coming out of your mouth, like it's not going to hurt your chances.
No. Absolutely not.
It's not taking a whole lot of extra effort, but what you're doing is programming your mind and like telling the universe this is what's going to happen because this is how I'm co-creating. This is
Yeah.
what I'm determining in advance. So,
Yep.
but
I got
awesome,
some
man.
good stuff, dude. Yeah, we can probably talk all day long, but I'll let you go.
For sure.
Yeah.
We'll do it again. We'll do it
Yeah,
again.
we'll absolutely do it again. I'll say one thing.
Yeah.
It was kind of off of what you said too. It was like when having kids to not necessarily don't focus on making the big leagues or even being the best in the world. Like you said, going around cleaning the house. Do it to the best of your ability. Don't try and be the best in the world at cleaning the house. If you continuously every single day push to do it the best that you can possibly do it, one day you'll look up and you may be the best.
Right.
Like it's a result of your behaviors, of your actions, of your mindset, like day in and day out. And the same thing with the big leagues. Don't shoot for the big leagues. Just shoot for being the best possible baseball player, all around player, and person and teammate that you can possibly be.
Right.
Don't say, well, what do the scouts want? Oh, well, they want 95 plus, and they want you to be able to hit 400 in college and all these things and run and field and throw, run a 6.5, 60 and all this stuff. And then they only focus on those things.
Mm-hmm.
No, focus on being the best possible player and biggest value and impact on your team and do that like there's no tomorrow. And then eventually you're going to start getting attention.
Exactly.
Because you will not be able to be ignored.
Right.
And so it's just going to be a consequence, basically. Making the major leagues is going to be something that just happens. Get in the Pro Bowl or get drafted, get in the Pro Bowl, and it just happens as a result of the process that you put in play.
Right. You can't be going through that process without keeping your head down. If you're poking your head up every other day and trying to see where you're at statistically or falling in line according to everybody else, then
it's a trap. Yeah.
It's a detriment to your progress for sure.
Yeah, man, that was a lot of fun. Thanks for being on.
Yeah.
And
we'll do it again.
Absolutely, dude.